Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we've reached the end of the day. We have our last panel now, and I would like to start by doing a brief introduction to this last panel, because there is a relation between this last panel, this conference, and our overall work in FilmEU. So as some of us have already mentioned, this conference is for us kind of, I would say, almost the end of an initial stage in our project, where we looked at different governance, existing governance models, where we've looked at experiences of other alliances, research that has been done by others like the European Universities Associations on this topic. And we tried, based on that, to come up with our own design for a governance model. And it was very interesting to see throughout the day that many of the challenges that were mentioned, many of the solutions that were presented are actually quite close to what we've been doing during the past year in FilmEU. But also we want to start working on the future. And it was very interesting to see during the Charm EU presentation, this movement from the builders to the consolidators, because that's basically the stage I think we are all in now in the second wave. So what we've done is we've decided to talk with other alliances that are also involved in the second wave and put out a call for a special issue that we want to publish a couple of months from now, precisely on the experiences of the alliances in setting up and designing their governance models, because we think that that benchmark of the different experiences will be tremendously interesting, not only in terms of the insight it will give us about the experiences of the European Universities Initiative so far, but also what that tells us about the transformation of higher education in Europe. So, and that is basically what we'll be doing in this last panel. So without further delays, I would like to ask Melania to come to, I won't say the stage, because this is not a stage. And just like we did in the other panels, we'll do the questions and answers in the end. Also because we have one of the speakers online, so we'll do a kind of blended mode thing.
We do it at the end then?
We do the questions and answers.
Okay, so that's good to meet you all here. My name is Melania Rivers. So I'm the general manager of the European Universities Ulysseus. As you see, it's Ulysses and EU. We merged this because we had a sense of adventure when we started imagining what we wanted for our European university. It was very important, all that phase of imagining what we wanted for the future. So if we see, we are the University of Sevilla, the Université Côte d'Azur in Nice in France, Genova, the Technical University of Cochise, MCI and Haggehelia, and we have lots of funding, never enough, as we have already said. So if we go ahead first, I will start with the goals of the European University. It's not the core of this chat, but as we said, this is an adventure. Cavafy will say very, very well. Hope your road is a long one, full of adventure, full of discovery. This is your university, isn't it? Adventure, discovery, knowledge. We enthusiastically went to that trip from the beginning, thinking about a 10-year journey. So if we go ahead, we believed that we wanted a model based on an innovation ecosystem. We thought that the universities have to be involved in regional and local development from different perspectives and giving all the knowledge for having a better future. So, well, of course, the call, and all of us have done it, ask us to have interlinked education, research, and innovation, services to society, of course, to contribute to prepare the citizens of the future. Of course, all of that was there, but for us, the model is an innovation ecosystem based on innovation hubs. The innovation hubs are going to be the collaboration scheme, the collaboration part of our alliance. If we go ahead, please. And someone asked me, and what is the glue of your alliance? It's quite difficult because we are, you know, from north to the south, from research intensive, comprehensive universities, applied science universities, and a technical university. What's the glue? Diversity. We want to learn from each other. That's the idea. So we make it a little difficult for us, but we have 6 diverse universities in 6 regions with 7 languages and with very big differences between us. Big differences and different strengths also. And this is what we are relying on to do this university. If we go ahead, please. And another thing we did, we can't do this with an innovation ecosystem. We can't do this just, by ourselves. So let's find 100 associated partners from regions to the local city halls, NGOs, student associations, business confederations, and companies for all the topics we decided we were going to. These topics were selected from a very, very in-depth analysis of 2 months based on our strengths and what we wanted to do in the future. So if we go ahead, please. Okay, we have these 5 key goals. I think that most of them will be the same for everyone, like modernizing European universities to contribute to regional and local development, reduce competitiveness gap. If we go ahead, please. Shape resilient human rights and respectfully and socially committed European citizenship, to provide steady in-person and virtual mobility with automatic recognition. Most of us have these key goals or something similar, probably. I'm going to center on modernizing our universities. Our governance and management structure is for transforming our universities from the diversity I have just told you about. So if we go ahead, please. We designed a 10-year journey. So for this, we were lucky because the Commission had made it very easy for now. Well, let's see. Because we thought about the MFF, about the financial structure first. And we knew that we're going to have 3 years first. And after all, we will need 4 years to search for the funding for consolidating the structure, the programs and the structures. So now we are designing and co-creating and launching the pilot activities, designing and co-creating the structure and launching the pilots of the activities. So this is what we are doing these 3 years. Now we're in the 18th month, and we have just, I think we have a structure now. We're ready to work with activities in a good way. So if we go ahead, please. Okay, there we go. This is how we see our university. This is a little difficult, but we rely on our campus, on our community, and on our activities. And we say campus from the beginning. We are planning a digital and territorial campus involved in our cities and in our regions. And we have a digital platform, we have our innovation hubs, and we have the central management office. We have a digital platform. We are developing our digital platform. We put 200,000 euros more for that there, for a partner to develop that digital platform, where it's the one-stop shop for Ulysseus, for all Ulysseus activities. What else? We got our community. Sorry, can we go ahead? No, it's fine. No, the 10th, please. The 10th, that's it. Okay, so we then rely on our community. And our community is not just the 6 partners, it's the regional governments, it's the citizens, it's the business. Our community is a big one that is already preparing projects, new proposals with us. That's quite important for us. We have a process for project proposals jointly with our associated partners. And finally, we have thematic challenges in innovation hubs where we collaborate to do these activities: education, research, innovation, competitiveness, ED, EDI, mobility, etc. So if we go ahead, please. This is the representation of our campus, the digital, the territorial campus with different innovation hubs and all the structures in different parts of the alliance. Okay, the central management office in Sevilla, digital platform in UCA, International Center in MCI in Innsbruck, a Students Association in Košice in Slovakia. So if you go ahead, please. Can you put it full screen, please? Oh, no, it's, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so that's what we imagine, how we do it. So let's have an integrative and democratic governance for doing so. The first thing we're thinking, we spent 4 months at the beginning, thinking about what are our common values and how we wanted to implement it through 8 governance plans. In these plans, we have everything: management, financial, dissemination, digitalization, sustainability, equality, internationalization, and green sustainability. So anyone that is working in Ulysseus, they already have 8 plans with different exact points of what it's expected of them in these different structures. And we got a document. I love documents. Can't help it. So if we go ahead, this is the governance structure. We saw the principles, now the structure. The structure was, of course, in 3 layers, the traditional layers. We added the advisory level. We have the strategic level with a governing council, with our rectors, of course, and vice rectors, and the general committee, which is the core decision-making body for everything. They are the work package coordinators and the innovation hub coordinators are in the general committee, because we are in an innovation ecosystem. So innovation hub coordinators, which are researchers, are there in the general committee. Then, well, okay. The governance implementation, how we do it? Okay, through coordination and representation in different boards that are already in the consortium agreement, the task forces, and work groups. When we see that we have some difficulties with something, okay, let's organize a work group. So we called some people outside the project, include people from different stages and make them work in recognition, the academic offer, dissemination, the joint degrees. And well, that gives us more documents, of course. We have the governance structures, operation, and usually a handbook for each of these activities. If we go ahead, please. We have a shared space in the Ulysseus Teams and intranet. This is how we work. We have an intranet in this digital platform where everything is in. We have more than 250 people working in this Ulysseus Teams and intranet right now. And well, you can see here how more or less looks. So if we go ahead, I just wanted an example of something innovative that I think that Ulysseus has. We focus a lot on evaluation. For us, the plan, do, check, act process is very important. So evaluation is quite important as well. So we have a radar observatory, internal observatory with 2 main functions that has the annual report and do an annual report. If we go ahead, if we can go ahead, please. That goes to the International Advisory Board. And if you go ahead, who gives the governing council some counseling on how and advice on how to improve in the future. It's a process of evaluation that we annually do, internally and externally. So we have this observatory. For us is quite important. If we go ahead, please. We sustain also in an agile, sustainable and proactive management, or we try to. Let's go ahead, please. Well, we based on a strategic planning, as I said, we have continuous improvement. A processes approach, we have a business processes officer who is in charge of checking that the processes are correct for decision making each step of the way, and accountability and repositioning, of course. If we go ahead also, we have some quality standards. All of us have them, of course. If we go ahead, and we have a central management office. This is the structure for management. Well, more of 30 people is working right now here. This was the structure in the in the proposal, but now it's a little different. But as you see, they are well concentrated structures in different places all through the alliance. If you could go ahead. We implement it through action plans, annual plans and reports, and 13 handbooks. Our objective is to know what we want to do. We got 13 handbooks or programs, and then we will go for projects to finance those programs. In fact, some of them that we will be developed during the 3 years will be converted or transformed in public guides for sharing best practices. This is the structure for our management. And if we go ahead, for these, we have 2 tools. First, we use the PM Square for the project. We use the PM Square management structure of the European Commission, which is very helpful. The handbook is based, management handbook is based on PM Square, and on Monday.com for following up our activity. So that's all.
We will now move on to the next presenter.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here and share with you the results of our work, within Unita, Universitas Monsium. My name is Barbara Gagliardi. I am an associate professor of administrative law, and I'm working on the legal entity provided by our project. This talk will be probably more technical than the previous one because I am a lawyer, so this is quite normal. I mean, and our idea is to share with you our technical thoughts. So I'm not really in the political process, but luckily there is here my vice rector who is in the political process. So if you need some information about it, ask to him. But I would like to share with you some very legal issue. First of all, a few words about the origin of this talk and about our alliance. Unita is composed by 6 universities, which are based in rural and cross-border mountain regions. And the key elements of the project are the use of Romance languages, in addition to English, to foster linguistic diversity and promote inclusion. And for instance, now we are working in French on the statute of our legal entity, even if we want to have a multilingual statute. And also we choose some fields for education and research activities, which are renewable energies, cultural heritage, and circular economy. And the project provides for the establishing of the legal entity in the working package number 8, which is consecrated to sustainability and dissemination. And you can find there some, I could say, keywords that have been mentioned several times today, like long-term perspective, financial sustainability, and visibility of the alliance, and so on. So I won't say more about it because I think that there are common features of our ideas about legal entities and alliances. So thank you. But I would like to try to put the project, always from a legal perspective, in a broader framework, talking about which are the real interest of a legal entity and of fostering cooperation in the field of academic activities and academic institutions, and also about the competence of European Union at this level. Because sometimes I have the feeling that we have a lot of dreams, of course, but probably we are not so really always aware of the limits of this competence. Even if something still remain possible. So I'm not so pessimist as I can appear. So I think that for universities is more than a strategic choice, and even for Europe is more than a strategic choice. Of course, fostering academic cooperation at the EU level is important for a more perfect unity of the single market and for EU economic and social cohesion. The economic dimension still remains central in the European Union view, and it could explain in some way why we are choosing for a grouping with an economic nature. Even if, so we don't have to forget that the European Union is based on the internal market. So the economic dimensions still remain crucial for all the regulations. But on the other way, as I strongly believe in the European Union as something more than the internal market, I think that it is very important to underline that this kind of cooperation could consolidate European identity and also strengthen EU citizenship in order to overpass this economic dimension. So to overpass this idea of the EU citizens just as a Marketbürger, which is a German name, but I like it very much because I think it is very strong. And also it is very important to protect some values. I think that all of you have read the recent communication of the Commission about the European strategy for academic cooperation, which lists a number of values which are common of our idea of human rights and academic freedom and free mobility of knowledge and so on. So I think that even if this is important because we are choosing an economic instrument, but we don't have to forget that there is all of this value behind the choice. So the next one, please. On the other hand, as I was saying, it is also important to have in mind that the competence of the European Union is not so broad in this field. I heard talking, not today, but in other situations, talking about a truly European university, a truly European degree. I think that for the moment, this is not possible. We should change the treaty in order to have this result. And the reason is why in the field of education, European Union has just a supplementary competence, which means that the European Union can carry out actions to support, to coordinate or supplement the actions of the member state. On the other hand, in the field of research, and this is also interesting that the two competencies are separated, which is the American model and not the European Humboldtian one. In the field of research, the competence is a shared competence, which is more than the supplementary one. The European Union can carry out activities, in particular to define and implement programs. But however, the exercise of that competence shall not result in member states being prevented from exercising their competencies. And the reason is that national education systems are strongly related to national identity. So the state will never renounce to their national system, and it is impossible at this stage to imagine an harmonizing competence in this field. And so this is the reason why, as Dana explained before, we should find ways to overpass limits. I don't know the word, neither in Italian, but I think that this sign could really explain what I have in my mind. However, the spending power is quite important in the history of European Union, because if you think, for instance, at the common agricultural policy, has been based basically on the spending power and on the conditioning power. And if you think, for instance, at the American model, US model, the federal government does not have an harmonizing competence in the field of higher education. You just have a spending power for the general welfare. But it does not mean that the federal government does not have any power to influence the national system. So we can have something through the spending power and through the conditioning power, and conditionality is becoming more and more important for the European Union system. We saw something, for instance, with the Next Generation EU and the case of Poland and Hungary. Okay, thank you. So our work. Unita decided to create a task force, very technical. All of us who are in this task force are professors in the field of law, researchers in the field of law. And so we started listing the possibilities, but we can skip this one because Dana has made quite the same list, so you already read it. And then, so which was our choice? The European Economic Interest Grouping. We are working on it. Currently, we are writing the statute. We are discussing every clause of the statute. So it's quite difficult, but maybe, so, because finger crossed, but we are seeing the end of the discussion. What is an European Economic Interest Grouping? We can define it as a EU consortium set up to pool means and other resources and to share losses and costs. I have the definition here, but the official one, but is it okay? According to the EU regulation, is a grouping established to facilitate or develop the economic activities of its members and to improve or increase the results of those activities and not to make profit for itself. So the first question is, are an economic nature compatible with higher education? Could an institution of higher education exercise economic activities? And what are the consequences? And the other issue is that economic does not mean for profit. We started just at the very beginning of the work thinking about for-profit options. We discussed a little about it, but we dismissed this option very soon because choosing an economic, a for-profit organization is not possible from the French perspective. So our French members say no, it is impossible because they have a principle which is called the principle of speciality, which doesn't allow a public institution to establish a for-profit corporation for its activities. So the European Economic Interest Grouping is something in the middle because it is not no profit, but it is also not for profit. I know that for a lawyer, it sounds very strange because we don't have something in the middle. It doesn't exist as something in the middle from my point of view, but this was the answer of my colleague, my French colleague. He told, but it is something in the middle. Okay, but it is true because it performs economic activities, but it is not supposed to distribute the profits. It could distribute the profit, it is possible, but it is not the normal decision. So normally the profits are reinvested in the organization itself. And this conclusion allow us to say that it is something in the middle. On the other hand, the Commission in 2012 clarified that public institutions can also offer educational services which due to their nature, financing structure, and the existence of competing private organizations are to be regarded as economic. Of course, this could have some consequences related to competition rules or to state aid regulation. But in a general, from a general point of view, it is possible. And so we choose this option. Thank you. So, of course, why we choose this option? Because from our point of view, there are more pros than cons. The first pro is that it is a genuine European grouping. And I know that, I think that Dana mentioned this aspect. From our point of view, it was very important to choose for a European legal framework. It's more than a pragmatic thing. It is a pragmatic thing because this grouping has a benefit for an automatic recognition in each member state. And the regulation is automatically applicable in each member state. And this is a strong guarantee. On the other hand, I think that choosing a national option could put some institution in a more advantageous position confronting to the other members, because some institution is more familiar with this legal framework as we are lawyers. So the first thing is that we need guarantees, one in front of the others, you know, it's a negotiation. And so we want something very common. It is also true that the EU regulation is not totally comprehensive of all the legal aspects relevant for this kind of grouping, because there is also a national regulation, but the national regulation provides for some minor aspects. So the more important framework is EU framework. So I think that this is a pragmatic choice, but also a cultural choice in order to have a very common house for our activities. We also talked about the ASBL. Someone proposed this solution because I think it sounds very, I don't know, sexy, you know, because it is an association internationale. But the reality is that it is based on Belgian law, and none of us is Belgian, so we didn't see any interest in choosing this option. And on the other way, it is still a national option and not a European one. Other pros, very important, is the organization, which is very flexible and unbureaucratic, because it is possible to manage the bodies, it is possible to have a full range of activities. The regulation establishes some important points, but on the other hand, allows personalization of the structure. And also another point that we found that it was very important is that it requires a strong commitment of the members, because according to the regulation, the withdrawal and the wind up require unanimity of the members. It is also true that the statute can provide for something a little bit different. But I think that this unanimity regulation establishes a very strong commitment, and we want to be attached one to the other for the future. On the other hand, there are some more pros. For instance, this grouping does not require a minimum share capital, and we are deciding not to put an initial capital on it, but just to establish fees, annual fees for the participation. It is very flexible. This is an important difference with the European grouping of territorial cooperation. It is very easy to establish because you just need to sign a contract, not even a notary deed, but just a normal contract between the universities, and to register the contract and publish on the National Gazette some elements of the contract. So normally it will be very quick to establish the grouping. It is open to the participation of public and private members, but you can see a little star because in reality, we don't want for the moment private members for a pragmatic reason, because having private members could cause some problems with the public procurement regulation. It could be difficult to establish direct contact, avoiding competitions between the member and the legal entity if private members are in it. This is the very restrictive view of the Italian Conseil d'État. It could use private law for employment relationship, which is quite good for recruitment procedures and dismissal. And also it has an advantageous tax regime. So I think that we think that this list of pros are more than the cons. There are, of course, some cons, but they are not so many, because the first one is quite important, and it causes some issues, and it frightened our legal services, because, and we have to say it, because the members have an unlimited joint and several liability for the debts of the grouping. And of course, our legs, I don't know if this expression exists in English, but we were afraid about it. We are afraid about it. But it is also true that at least for the beginning of its activities, we don't expect the EIG to have a huge amount of debt. So it is just to start with our activities and also to be cautious about it. In our view, it is an element of commitment, of course, and it could have some positive aspect. And there are some minor limitations on activities. For instance, the EIG should exercise only ancillary activities. So it could not replace the institutional activities which remain on the members. And some activities are excluded, for instance, purely administrative activities or activities involving the exercise of prerogatives of public authority. But it is also true that a public institution could exercise this kind of activities, but in a minor dimension, just delivering certification or something else. So it is not so important in our view. And finally, the making of and sharing of profits could not be its principal activities, but it is not our goal neither. So it is not a real problem. So basically, there are the reason of our choice. Finally, I just want to thank all the members of the task force who are working with me and with my co-author, who is Arnaud Lecourt, and also the next one. Thank you for your attention. It's finished. Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll jump online to our third and last intervention on this panel. And before we move to the questions and answers, I'm not sure if we have Till with us. Okay, Till.
I'm here with you. Yes, I can hear you, and I followed you, of course.
Thank you very much for being with us, Till. We'll do, since you are online, we'll do your intervention slightly different from the previous ones, as we've discussed. And I have two questions that I would like to have your reflections on. I'm not sure if you want to say something before that in relation with FilmEU art, but what I would like to ask you is, we've had in one of the previous panel a presentation on the number of partners of the different European universities. That is a graphic that always leaves me with a heavy conscience, because we are one of the smallest alliances, but you are the other one. So Till, here we are, the smallest of the smaller. And my question is, both FilmEU art and FilmEU are related with artistic education. My question is, if you think it's more difficult to develop projects like the European universities, endeavors that involve a complete institutional transformation, when you are dealing with specific educational fields, namely the arts?
Well, maybe I would say, as a short introduction of mine, I have a function in the Horizon 2020 program of EU for Art, which is called EU for Art Differences, where I'm the project content manager and speaker. So I am not directly involved in the organizational tasks of the main project. This means that maybe I will not be able to answer every question to the fullest, but to get back to your question, well, as you said, we are really small. We are only 4 academies of fine arts with only several hundred students. In some cases, Dresden is around 500. Riga is even less. Budapest is also only around 1,000, I think. Only the Academy of Fine Arts in Rome is larger with 3,000 students. So we we really talk about small numbers. And we also talk about categorical difficulty, I would say, in relation to the fact that those Academy of Fine Arts have extremely different profiles, which means we have different degrees. Some of us don't have PhD possibilities. We have completely different structures in terms of curricula, and we have also very different self-images related to our traditions, related to how the teaching in the academies developed during the last decades. And that makes it quite fascinating, but also quite complex. So the institutional transformation is quite a tricky thing for us, I would say, yes.
And my next question has precisely to do with governance model. And I think that FilmEU art is one of the few cases where the horizon is completely different from the Erasmus Plus funding. So my question is, how, in terms of governance, how have you defined your governance for the specific part of the H2020 funding, and how do you see that evolving in the future, considering that it's still not clear how the H2020 funding will then be extended, probably on the horizon and the widening part?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, of course, the to start with the question of governance, I think we are still really in the process. We have been discussing the possibility of a common curriculum and common legal entity, but I have to admit that I'm not really involved in the latest state of this discussion. For the next phase, which we are applying for at the moment, or which we have applied for some weeks ago, I think the legal entity is not really a topic up to now, because we are also planning to open up for at least 2 new universities next year, and we are in discussions with 2 more at the end of 2028, if I'm not wrong. So that the question of forming a legal entity becomes even more difficult than it is right now. What we try to do in terms of governance is, of course, to follow core points like sustainability, like, well, of course, fulfilling all the needs that you follow in terms of, oh, sorry, I have been talking too much today. We try to integrate the differences of the academies into our core approach to governance models, because we know that we will not have the possibility or also not the wish to uniform and streamline what we are doing. That would destroy our profiles in some ways. For the differences program, which is our research program, we have been intensely working on questions of artistic research, which in itself, of course, is quite a special topic in the context of the European universities, because artistic research is, well, it's even debated in the artistic field as a new option of bringing together artistic knowledge, creation, and sciences and artistic practice. And this is something which is not really too much in the discussion of the EU as well. So, well, what will be our task, of course, and that's also why we came into discussion, Manuel and me, is that we really try to find options how to make visible what, well, a good content and research related governance in fine arts academies can also offer to the European Union and to society.
Okay, thank you very much, Jill. I would now like to ask our two other participants to move here to the forefront. And Jill, please stay with us. We'll move on to the questions and answers and debate, so to say, to wrap up the session. And I have a very specific question. Your presentation was very interesting. Thank you very much. But I have a very precise question, because in your cons, you did not mention the issue or the fact that if you have an economic activity status, at least in Portugal, in terms of benefiting from European funding under the laws of state aid, you become then non-eligible for, it depends a little bit on the region, exactly in the country where you are, but for instance, in the Lisbon region area, that means you go for a minimis system. So there is no way you'll get more than 200,000 of euros of funding. So I was kind of puzzled that you did not mention that cons when you're talking of a legal entity that will have to deal with European funding. Yeah, you mentioned it before, but then you said, yeah, but that's not important.
I think that this kind of mixed nature between profit and for-profit needs from some clarification more, because even if it is not a corporation, so it is not exactly the same thing. And I'm not sure about the incompatibility of state aids with this nature. For instance, we tried to go in depth for the participation to bids, and it seems that apparently we can do it with this kind of grouping. So I think that it is a little bit, it is not so clear. I mean, and on the other hand, we don't want to just put contributions on it, but more exercise some economic activities and also participate in competition, which are not state aids. On the other hand, from our point of view, this is a very temporary solution. We are really waiting for the regulation, which is expected by mid-2024. And we think that this is the more simple way to have something in a short term and to begin to share data, resources and activities. And then we will see. Our goal is to have something simple, flexible, and then we will see if we will have some problems, we will change. But we think that it is very important to start with something easy to manage and European.
Yeah, because supposedly only European ones will be eligible for also for the call on the pilot. Yeah, of territorial cooperation that was not discussed today. Yeah.
If I may add on that, I think one of the points that Barbara said and underlined, and that was one of the aim of our rectors when deciding on the legal entity statute, is a strong commitment. And this relates to the previous talk when we are all aware that the EU funding is, I like it. It's better to have it than not to have it, of course, but it's not the solution. And so you need an institutional involvement in that. We were pretty scared of starting a trip with people that could withdraw without any problem, because we know that rectors change by definition. And so what comes out of all this, if even our rector in 3 years will change for sure. And if a new rector doesn't want to engage the university in the alliance anymore. But so the strong commitment was really one of the key issues.
Yeah, when weighing the pros and the cons. I have a question in the case of Ulysseus. If I understood it correctly, and that's my question or doubt, if you prefer, these hubs that you've mentioned, they are kind of two-folded. So they have both a thematic approach, but also an operational one, in the sense that they deal with a specific aspect of the governance and management, or are they only operational? Because that was not completely clear for me. And the second thing is, when I looked at your graphic, those hubs sounded a lot like the new RIS hubs that the EIT wants to implement. Were you inspired by that model of the KICs?
Yeah, well, the KICs are inspired in the digital innovation hubs of the European Commission and the future European research area hubs that are now that we have 2 calls in Horizon Europe. Yes, everything that we have designed is European Commission driven. We haven't invented anything. It's just we are giving responses, our response to what has been asked. Innovation hubs are for education, research, and innovation activities. Then each university, not all of them, but except Gagliardi in Helsinki and in Genoa, they have a part of the structure of the central management office. They depend on the coordination, but they are doing international projection, international coordination from MCI in Innsbruck, or they're organizing the Students Association in Košice. We have just came 2 days ago, 3 days ago, I don't know, last week, from the first meeting of the associations to think, students thinking on how they want to develop this structure. But innovation hubs are focused on regional and local strength and development through the associated partners for education, research, and innovation, interlink education, research, and innovation. Each one of them are going to have that support the project says, and I hope we will be able to develop 1 master degree and 1 doctorate degree joint in each of the topics. So at the end of 2023, we expect to have 12 joint degrees.
Challenge. Okay, so Questions or comments you want to add?
Thank you both. I have a general question about how all that integration within your alliance has impacted your institution's policies. And perhaps one example is Ulysseus. Is quite impressive to see all those policy documents about this is what we do for internationalization. It's very similar to what each university has also to decide for themselves. So I would like to hear a little bit how you see the interactions.
It's been funny. But the transformation process is great as we're documented everything. And we started in the University of Sevilla, the coordinator. What we did is to involve all the directors of each structure. For instance, we have the director of internationalization of the University of Sevilla in all the tasks that we do. We have the internship director in the tax of internships for Ulysseus. So this has made it easier for us somehow, but it's very, very difficult anyway. And it's changing. We are starting to change our own rules in the University of Sevilla for having Ulysseus in a specific place to make things faster, to make things easier, for doing joint structures, even in mobility. We have a specific mobility calls for Ulysseus. So, or fast track to mobility for doing so. And I can say that almost all our universities are very, very, it's different levels, but we are trying we really believe that this can transform our universities and make them more efficient, that we can make a better future. That's the idea. Thank you.
More questions? No?
Very late.
It's very late.
Very late.
So I would like to thank Till Online for being with us, and also our physical live presenters. And I'm not sure if I will now jump directly to Verli for the conclusions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Till, for your participation.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, I can conclude. So it will be very short. I have a book with me the whole day. I have some quotes of the day I will definitely take with me. I wrote a lot down. I think we also will give everybody the presentation so we can also refer to this. But I have my book because I'm also very tired, so I'm not going to speak. I'm going to read from my diary. And one day in... So the quotes I definitely will take with me after today. So the European University should not be doing activities that the individual members are already doing. That was from the first speech of Emily. What is the glue? Diversity, it's about learning from each other. I linked this also with the first quote. So it's a very dynamic diary, yes. I really put things. Governance is not the goal. And I know Mark is also taking this with him. Governance is not the goal of our collaborating in a European University initiative. You don't need an innovative governance model. Let's skip innovative. You need a model that works. I think I can take this with me from your talk, Dana. Or was it? Okay, yeah, sorry. It was it's 4U1. It's you sometimes need different heads to bridge science, management, and politics, and I agree with this. We often need different heads to talk to people and to try to convince people of this collaborations. Are we, so the individual members, committed to a long-term and sustainable transformation? So there are also questions I wrote in my diary. Okay. To facilitate flexibility at the national level, we should, well, sorry, to facilitate flexibility at the national level, that can boost competitiveness on the European university floor. And it's also related to the last remark of you, so I wrote down your slide, because now, take into account the limited competence of EU in the field of higher education. But however, EU spending power could significantly influence national decisions. It's conditioning power we have. So, and the last one I have, it's also a question, but we can end with questions, and then we're going out. We're not gonna talk about governance structures for a long time. Is the European University Statute the most effective and the most efficient? And I'm not going to comment on this. Thank you very much for being here in the room. Thank you very much. Now it's only 10 people anymore. The whole day there were 17 people there, and so thank you very much in the virtual world. Thank you for being in Brussels, and hope to see you in the future. Thank you.